the concept of fragility rather than vulnerability, because I want to go beyond only the political and social spheres or economic sphere. And here, I think that what becomes important in when I'm talking about the otherness of the other, actually, the otherness of the other is the way we look at the other. Actually, it's not just having the other; it's actually looking at the otherness is much more important than the other. The otherness of the other. For example, I try to extrapolate and try to explain clearly in my in the book what I mean by otherness of the other. When we talk about the darkness of the dog, the catness of the cat, the sharpness of the shark, what I mean by the otherness of the other is actually going to the essence of that being, and not just looking at it from the point of view of our own cogito. The cogito, in a Cartesian way, needs to subvert its own centrality in order to leave space for the otherness of the other. And this is what we have to practice. I mean, we were talking about the practice. I mean, John was asking very correctly, how can this be practical? How can we do things? How can we operate these ideas? I think we need to have this wake of responsibility. That's why I think what Gandhi says is very correct. We have to be the change that we want to see in the world. If we do not decide morally to change, we cannot change our world. And I think that everybody here present knows that very, very clearly. So if we do not look at reality differently, if we do not change our lives, if we think that, I think one of the negative aspects of our today's civilization is celebrity. Every individual in this world wants to be known, actually, on the Facebook or on social media, and that's what's so important for them. They want to have likes, and I remember once in a conference I was talking to a sociologist, and this sociologist was telling me that old sociologist. He was telling me, he said, you know, I'm 88 years old, and in 88 years, I only have had 5 friends. And there is somebody who comes to me and says that on Facebook, he or she has something like 500 friends. How can you have 500 friends? What is the notion of friendship when you just go to the Facebook and you just put likes? I mean, this doesn't mean anything. So this is actually where we stand, and this is where the problem is. Now, just let me, so we have to get out of this centralized ontology as it's developed by philosophers like Descartes or Hegel, in order to get to the otherness of the other. And to go very quickly, I think that the point about the feminine, which is a very, very important point, and it actually is one of the chapters of one of the books that I recently wrote about Gandhian political philosophy. You know, as you know, Gandhi tried to feminize Indian politics, and nonviolence, I would say, is in nonviolence we have the imperative of the feminine. In nonviolence we have the imperative of the feminine. Gandhi was very conscious about that. Now, if you go and you read the trial of Nathuram Godse, he says, we killed Gandhi because we think that Gandhi was too feminine. He says exactly what I'm telling you. He says, I killed Gandhi because I think that I believe that Gandhi was making us feeble, and he was trying to make us feminine, and everything about India and Hinduism is about courage and is about masculinity and virility. So Gandhi was destroying that, and he's right. Gandhi was destroying it because actually plurality has to do with the feminization of politics also. And I think this is epistemic humility actually is partly has to do with that. So, um, you know, I don't think that I don't think that we can change the political and the economic in today's world if we do not try to look differently at reality and try to think differently. Unfortunately, this is not, and I didn't talk much about it, and that's the problem of education. How do we educate the next generations? Uh, how do we teach them that beauty is more important than ugliness? The example that I have that you will immediately understand is not only the Facebook and social media, which I think is disastrous, it's also something like Netflix. Uh, Most of the teenagers actually, they watch something like the Squid Game, which is pure violence and pure meaninglessness about human beings. And they don't watch, actually, they never go and watch, and you can see it's not rated. They don't watch the documentaries on who killed Malcolm X or murder in the stadium of Victor Jara. They are not interested in that. They are not interested in history. They are not interested in knowing more about how our century was made. They are interested in the Squid Game. And in a world where Squid Game becomes a celebrity, and I think there is no hope to change. I think I stop here because there's certainly people who want to ask questions.
Thank you, Ramin. So now let us join in the conversation. So we are to conclude around 6 p.m. in 20 minutes, but maybe we can go 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes extra if it is needed. So now I request friends to kindly share their thoughts briefly. So to initiate the conversation, let me invite Professor Mira Chakrabarti, then Professor Gyanli, and others who like to say, please do indicate the chat box. So, Professor Mira Chakrabarti, please.
Thank you, Ananta. Professor Ramin, I had met you there in Satyagraha conference in Delhi, and we had a small talk saying, if you turn Remy, I'll become Mira. Okay. Okay. Now, I have two things to ask you. Now, in what way Maxima Moralia of Adorno, because he also tries to see through critical theory, in what way your Maxima Moralia is distinct from Maxima Moralia? Because Adorno also points out, like you, that there is a subversive nature of toys with decay, even in the decay of conversation. Not only just, even in conversation, as rightly you pointed out, now the younger generation doesn't see the documentary at least. They are interested in quick game. So even the conversation is not possible with the younger generation because they are not aware of what is happening. So in what way would you say that your Maxima Moralia is unique than Adorno's Minima? That is one thing. The other thing is, shouldn't we, Remy, try to diagnose the problem? The symptoms are of course there, but if it is capitalism which is bringing so much booze, so much torture, so much, and capitalism is also in one way responsible for the whole pandemic that you have been talking. So the fragility, one way I think there should be a transformation in the whole capitalism, which perhaps maybe you cannot do away with capitalism, but you can transform its nature we can transform its nature to an extent. So therefore, fragility need not be seen really from a linear perspective. It also is responsible for creating a creativity. Like if pandemic has given us the fragility, then I think from that fragility we should learn to how transform. Land was never perhaps in all culture, land was never a commodity. Land has become a commodity now, and people are. I see it in different pockets because I'm also involved in the movement in this movement. That people are going back. It is of course the percentage is negligible, but people are going back to that. So the commodification of land that is there is being, at least in very, very small way, being protested. That also I think we should know. Now about the uh, I just wanted to just doing away with this. Sorry for my throat is little different. I was very interested in. I saw the interview with Isaiah Berlin that you mentioned. It's very interesting, Berlin's topic. I just wanted to know how the concept of freedom and the liberty that Berlin discusses, does it, I'm just curious, just does it resonate with Rosa Luxemburg's concept of freedom? Because she has a lot to say about freedom. Of course. So therefore, how would you try to see that, if possible, you will see? Thank you, Ananta.
Thank you, Mira, and I request Ramin to kindly take notes of a few conversations, and we'll. So now, Gianluigi, please.
Yes, thank you very much. It was really very interesting. I have, of course, noted many points. I would limit my intervention to some few points. But I think that about the question of the dominance, of the theory of dominance of man on the nature, uh, Descartes is, of course, a turning point. Perhaps it could be added also the person as a thinker, as a sort of Francis Bacon, because also Francis Bacon is going to consider nature as a laboratorium in which individuals can do and may do more or less all that what they want to do. Of course, Descartes is, in a certain sense, responsible also for a degradation of the out dimension of the non-human animals, as we say now, because in the discourse de la méthode, he degraded all animals to machines, and so thus legitimating the use of animals as commodities. There is a really commodification of animals, in spite of the fact that also that of course Descartes does not express his own thought in this way, but the long-term evolution of the consideration of animals was this, that is, animals are commodities which we can quote, for instance, as actions in the capital market and so on. I think that one point to be considered, to be mentioned here, is that there is also a theological ground on foundation of the mentality of dominance. That is, at least in the Christian tradition, one of the points is whether God has given the universe, the world, the earth, to the individuals in order that the earth is dominated by them. Up to a certain point, it seems that the message of the Genesis is this, that is, earth belongs to to men, and therefore men may do all of what they want to do on earth and on the animals. Of course, now this interpretation of the theology of the creation is no longer the only one, because now is affirming step after step the point that God's message is rather a message of stewardship. That is, individuals, human beings, should be the stewards of earth and not the dominators of earth. But of course, this is the point, that is, in the 16th century, the dominance of the individuals was founded also on this message, on this interpretation, particular interpretation, specific interpretation of the Genesis message in the Bible. Last but not least, I think that one point we can see regarding the destruction of the very destruction of the existence of the otherness. One point in which we can find this ideology in action is in all those texts in which the other, with the discovery of the New World by the Europeans, the other people, the indigenous people of the other continent, are degraded to the primitive. And this is, of course, very significant, because if the other are primitive, this means that they are those who have remained backwards, and therefore they should be brought to our dimension. This is so ideology in action. The other is the primitive. Therefore, the primitiveness should be eliminated, and this, of course, meant also that they were eliminated as persons, or at least their culture, their uses, and their way of thinking. So thank you very much. It was very wonderful, very well. Thank you.
Thank you again. So perceptive comment, and here philosophy and life comes together in very important ways. So now Minati, and after Minati, Randhir, please.
Hello. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Ananta bhai, for.
You can please put your video. Our
Video is on. Video is on.
Acha, we cannot see you. Okay.
Now can you see?
Okay, please go ahead. We cannot still see so much here. Okay.
Yes. Hello.
Yes, please.
This video is now not audible. I will be able to see.
You are sitting somewhere we cannot see you, but please go ahead. Please go ahead.
I'm thankful for being present in this webinar to listen all these deep enriching discussions and the presentation. There are actually many things, many new ideas, many new terms, many new things. Just I learned, like same like cosmo companionship and about lot of things. Neela ma'am was telling about the loss of feminism and all these things. So it is the one thing which that probably I'm not qualified to discuss about that, but just saying the otherness of other. Probably in my view, it is accepting the differentness of others as our our circle. In this thing, it is like that. And then I have one poetry on that otherness. No, the otherness of other. When I wrote that, probably I did not think that this idea will be really there, and it will be conceptualized in this way, the way Professor Ramin has written. So I would like to thank everyone, and it's today no time, so I'll just say thank you.
You can read a few lines from your poem.
Okay.
Please.
The poem is about dark light. Actually, when you see others suffer, so that is about that. when the pain is not in you, but you can feel others' pain. So the poetry is about that. And seeing light in the darkness. It is like that. My pain is my strength. My pain is my strength, and yours is a weakness. We cry with our only two eyes, and same tear is in the sheer darkness. We cry with our only two eyes, and the same tear in the sheer darkness. We are together in every black phase and light, joyous to accept and monster to fight. The silver lining we saw in the dark cloud, spending time together, catching and living in the moment, otherwise we never could. So days came and turned into night, and nights become day. The windy air has changed into the harsh rain. We dipped into the moment and dived into pain without essay. Seasons changed. Seasons changed. Festivities just passed by without touching us, not calling out our names like an invisible tide. As the dusk, we kept waiting for the new dawn in its way. It welcomed us with a bright and golden ray. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Minati. And this reference to tear and weeping also brings a related dimension that Ramin is pointing to fragility and also weeping. And I remember here Derrida, who is talking us about weeping, and he is reading Nietzsche in a way, how Nietzsche wept quite a lot, seeing the tears in the eyes of the horse. So now, Randhir, please.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Ramin, just 1 minute. We have Randhir.
Randhir, okay.
Yeah.
Uh,
Randhir.
Thank you so much, sir. It was really very insightful session. I'm very happy that if you want to understand humility, for that matter, one important thinker, I think, Marcuse, and of course, emancipatory methodology is very important to understand epistemological humility. Professor Sachi, of Jamia Millia Islamia, he used the word epistemological trust. So the question of freedom is central, because what we are witnessing is market and new liberal ideology are forces that obstruct our sense of freedom, our sense of self-respect, our sense of dignity, for that matter, worthiness, usefulness, and the very purpose. And it is very important to recognize how these forces and their effects operate through earlier mode of production that are primitive and that are very regressive but persist emotionally and are manipulated by both authority and otherness. Marcuse, in his 1969 essay, Repressive Tolerance, because I think tolerance is very important. The idea of tolerance is very important in order to understand the whole conception of epistemological humility. And Marcuse says tolerance is an end in itself only when it is truly universal, practiced by the rulers as well as by the ruled. And I'm just trying to understand possibility of inculcating the awareness among the masses, particularly towards the uncritical of mass media. And also Marcuse, along with two important thinkers, one of Karl Mannheim and the thinker who wrote the Open Society and the Enemies, Popper, where he also invoked the idea of the paradox of tolerance. I think these are the three important thinkers around which we can develop the idea of epistemological humility, because humility does not come without development of dissents. And Marcuse even wrote in one of his articles that the idea of tolerance implies the necessity to become illegitimate if and when the established legitimacy prevents and counteracts the development of the dissent. So I just, because Professor Ramin is also a Gandhian thinker, so I just want to understand this, how Gandhi actually has a kind of solution of uncritical of the mass media, you know, how we can, because nowadays with the advent of this post-truth society, the whole power of propaganda, and propaganda has become the truth in this today's context. So how we can deal with the challenge of actually the civilizational challenge, I would say, of recognizing truth with humility, dignity, beauty, and respect. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Randhir. And I request Ramin just a few minutes. We are gifted by the presence of Sushri, who is also a very deep poetess. And so Sushri, please.
Thank you, Ananta Bhai, Professor Giri, for the invitation, and thank you, Professor Ramin. Thank you, Professor John Clammer, Professor Neela Chakravarti, Professor Neela Bhattacharya, Professor Meera Chakravarti, Randhir, Minati. This session has been personally very fascinating, especially the self in relation to others has been a very fascinating subject for me, as it's a part of my research on poetry and search of self. So before I come to, Ananta Bhai has mandated me for presenting a poem, which I would do. Before that, just a few words on. So which is a very fascinating, the otherness of the other. Since the question is what is this otherness, I have seen this in two ways, and probably when we are witnessing the otherness of the other, that's where it is the other, and but there is another way when we are actually, so that is basically the self that is witnessing the other. But when we are meditating on the otherness of the other, that is the collective which is looking at the other. So there it is perhaps equidistant from self and the other, and hence the meaning of otherness is perhaps very different. So with this, I'll come to my poetry, which again deals with this complex subject of otherness of or other self in relation to others, and the challenges and complexities of it. The complexities are more to do with the sense of self with other and not the sense of collective with other. Here goes, the battle of the blazing sun. In the battlefield, I stand still like a flask of present, surrounded by innumerable moments, the days departed, the smiles, the tears, the stories of my struggle and the win-overs. My soul is a blank scroll of events to appear. Who can I hurt and who I should not? Who can I hurt and who I should not? Every sigh of pain is my own. Every drop of tear is my ablution. whether it rolls from the eyes of truth or of illusion. I find the grains of myself in all forms. I find the grains of myself in all forms, every despondent thought, born or unborn, is into my core. Where is the distinction between culprit is but a victim of another? Where is the virtue and vice when I know culprit is but a victim of another? Destination waits for me at the other side of the battle of life. Destination waits for me at the other side of battle. I know I have to cross over, but who do I fight against and who do I fight for? I know I have to cross over, but who do I fight against and who do I fight for? Who am I and who am I not? But who do I fight against and who do I fight for? Who am I and who am I not? At the portal of my conscious, I'm blazing and blind. At the portal of my consciousness and blazing and blind, light is born to me, yet I see nothing. Here, I drop all weapons. I drop all weapons. I drop my body, my soul, my wisdom. On the toe of time, I sit immense and alone. So, thank you.
Thank you, Sushri. Now, Ramin, please.
I try to be very quick and not to take much of your time, just to be respectful and answer to the questions or the points which were made. First of all, my answer to Mira would be that yes, Adorno has always been very important as a figure for me, and of course Adorno talks about uses the subtitle of Maxima Moralia uses the word damaged, which also is very closely related to the question of vulnerability or fragility. And the question that Adorno has behind his mind is how the individual can survive this damage in an administrative world. Now, I use the word corporate because it's much more world. I mean, we are confronted with the corporate mind everywhere when we go to the bank or we go to the university or we take a flight. This corporate mindedness is what Adorno called the administrative world or administered world. So I think that's the point that I wanted to make with that. For Professor Scalerba, he's very correct. Actually, yes, Descartes doesn't use the word commodity, but he certainly thinks of man, of a human being, as the highest in the scale of intelligence among. And I think one of the points that I can make, Christianity has been trying to use the word as Professor Scalerba said, stewardship, but not companionship. And this is what is important of what Martin Luther King Jr. talks. He uses the word companionship, not stewardship. Because stewardship again means that we are the leaders on the planet Earth and we are supposed to guide the other living creatures. But if we have companionship, it means that we share our lives and we share our sufferings with the other living creatures. As for Randhir, what he said, I did not use the concept of trust or tolerance because I think that they can become very negative in some points, as Marcuse actually shows for tolerance, and that's why I use other concept. I use the concept of empathy, which I think is much more active than passive. And one point which I didn't talk about, because I cannot talk about everything, of course, is the concept, I think that epistemic humility means dissidence and dissent. And this is actually the subject of one of my books, which is called The Pedagogy of Dissent, also published last year by Orient Black Swan. Gandhi was a dissenter. Yes, you have it in your, yeah. Gandhi was a dissenter. I mean, what is important for me is that Gandhi was a dissident and a dissenter. He was a dissident in Indian politics. He was a dissenter in regard to things that he wanted to rethink. And that's why he's interesting, because he's an individual that he actually forced himself to change and to suggest others to change. So that's practically everything I wanted to say. Thank you again. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Ramin. We also have a song of thanks. We are changing the language from vote of thanks to poem and song of thanks. So Sushri, please.
You can begin the song of thanks and from